Welcome to the Vine Life Podcast. I'm Tony Clark, your host. Today, my special guest is Benny DiChiara. Now, Benny is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, and also a motivational speaker. Benny and his band, Empowered, have just released a new EP simply titled Salt. Now, more information about Benny and his band, Empowered, can be found at rockinforjesus.com, and that's rockin4jesus.com. And you can go to that website, certainly find all of his social media links and all of that good stuff, and also information about this brand new EP. And we'll discuss that today. So, Benny, thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Tony, thanks for having me. I'm blessed to be sharing some time with you today.
Ditto here, the same here. Now, this new EP that just came out recently.
Yeah.
It's titled Salt.
Yeah.
SALT. Now, I'm curious, where does that name, why title the album or the EP Salt?
It's Salt. Interesting story. So we were in Wilmore, Kentucky last year to do the Ichthus Festival, and that hurricane came through and it wiped everything out. And so we didn't play. And so the founders of the festival were like, what are y'all doing tomorrow on Sunday? And I was like, well, nothing. We're heading east because we had another show at another festival the following weekend. And he says, would you like to come to church with us all tomorrow and help support the evangelist that was talking? And so I'm like, sure, man, we don't want to miss an opportunity to go to church. So Tony, this church, man, it was like built in the 1800s. Sometime, just a little wooden shotgun kind of church. And so we went in and they asked us to play one of our songs. So there's zero electronics in the church, like very unlike the modern church. So one of my guitarists is on the upright piano. One of them's on his acoustic. My drummer's on a big djembe drum because they didn't have drums in there or whatever. And I'm just singing, no microphone or anything. I'm just out front. We're just doing the thing. So one of our songs is called I'll Meet You There, Daddy's song. So when my daddy had cancer, he passed away years ago, God gave me that song to heal people who have been through loss. So we're playing that song and everyone there was like touched. And so we go sit down and the evangelist has an incredible word from God. And so after that, he says, anyone who wants prayer, please come to the center. The entire church, everybody got up. So he looks at me and he says, Pastor Benny, get your guys, man. We have to pray some people up. So I looked at my band guys, my bandmates. I was like, well, boys, looks like we're praying in Wilmore, Kentucky this morning. Let's go. So we went and helped them pray over everybody. At the end of it, the evangelist was like, do you and the guys need prayer? And I'm like, well, we're a band. So yes, always. We'll take that. So we get down on our knee and he's praying over us. And then Pastor Travis, who was the pastor of the church, this was Wilmore Christian Church, and he says, Pastor Trav, take it. And I didn't know what was going on. So he starts praying over us, and in the middle of it, he goes from prayer to prophecy almost, right? He says, the Lord has given me a word for you from the time you walked into my church. And that word is salt. And he wants you to know what it means. And then he proceeded to break down what SALT meant. And we're boo-hooing like 2-year-olds. Just like the weight of the Holy Spirit was definitely on us. And it was an incredible. And so the afterwards, I went up to him and I'm like, I'm so sorry for like just crying and oozing body fluids all over your floor or whatever. He was laughing. And I said, and thank you for the title of our next record. And he says, what is it? And I said, Salt. He goes, yes. And I said, hey, don't just divinely inspired by that. So we took Salt as a title. There's not one song on this EP titled Salt, but every song on it is in fact salt in its way. And it comes from Matthew 5, right? 13 through 20, where Jesus is doing a Sermon on the Mount. And he's saying, lest ye be trampled, you should be out there proclaiming the gospel. And so the songs are kind of pointed that way. Definitely a God and Jesus filled record, just probably more of all of them. So Mikey Howard, 7 Time Down, he's our producer, and this is his third project with us. And he was like, yeah, by far, lyrically and everything else. I mean, you could just feel the move of God in this thing. And I actually had a vision in the middle of the whole recording of it in the vocal booth, which is crazy. If it's crazy. And I knew right then, I said, there's something special here. So let's go point people to him. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to be salt, but we're using music.
And I got a chance to listen to the album today. And now stylistically, just in terms of the music, it's a pretty straightforward rock focused, rock centric, in your face music. Can you describe it stylistically, if I could pronounce it for the audience?
Right, right. So like I'm an old guy. So I'm 64 years old, Tony. So started the band in 1997, and now God is moving the band forward. And you know, just a note for your viewers or your listeners, if God's ever given them a dream and they haven't seen it yet, just press into him, keep working, keep doing what the Lord's telling you to do. His timing is definitely not our timing, right? So that's important. I think as Christians, we forget that. Because somebody had asked me once before too. They said, hey, have you ever thought about quitting? And I was like, absolutely not. As clearly as I heard God say, do this for me, I've never heard him come back to me and say, guess what? I was wrong and I made a mistake. And so let's dial that back a little bit. And all of this is coming out of a brain injury and everything. And just, it's a miracle what's going on with that. So yes, stylistically, because I'm an older guy, I think the 70s were the best decade of music for me personally, because all of those great bands they had careers, by the way, 20-year careers. It's not like today, 15 seconds on TikTok, right? That they had careers. They were artistically gifted. They would rock your face off, but you could hear every lyric clearly. You knew exactly what they were singing about, and they just had that. So on a secular side, we get compared a lot to Daughtry, Boston Journey, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, that kind of stuff. On the Christian side, we get compared a lot to Building 429, Skillet, sometimes a little Striper, Seventh Time Down. I think that's Mikey's influence coming in there, which is I'm great with, Petra and things like that. So it's a mishmash, pish-posh of what God's doing. And I talk to the guys all the time about it. I'm like, please do not get hung up on being identified as being a certain thing, right? Because God has created us in this band, and he's put this band together to be a specific thing that's going to reach a specific person or audience that he has in mind. So when we go to shows, I tell the guys, 10 people, 100, 1,000, 10,000, it does not matter. We do the same ministry from the stage, and it's for the one person out there that God has going through something, that something hits and clicks, right? And they go, I had no idea. Our favorite stage is the merch table after, because we get to go pray with people and talk with people. And we always say it from the stage, please come, don't leave here. Especially if you don't know Jesus, please don't leave here without coming to talk to us. And we'd love to pray with you or whatever. And at our CD release concert last week, there was a young lady in her 20s, and she says, were you serious about praying at the table? And I'm like, sure. So she comes and I said, what do you need prayer for? And Tony, she says, I want to pray for you. I want to pray for y'all. So I was like, bring that young lady of God, right? And she did. She was dialing it up. And the guys were like, wow. And then we just prayed over her, covering over her as well. That's our most favorite moments. I mean, technology is great because we're at distance and we're having an interview right now today, but you'll never replace this, the one-to-one personal interaction. I believe that's why God sent his son to the earth to walk among us, right? So he could show us in the physical how it's done.
You know, it's interesting you said whether it's, and I'm paraphrasing, whether one person you're playing to or 10 people or 100 or hundreds, we tend to get focused on numbers. And if I'm thinking back, there's a story about a fella called Noah. And I don't think he had a lot of response to his message either, but God used him.
Yeah, a lot of ridicule. Think about that. I mean, the biblical scholars say they think between 55 and 70 years it took him to build the ark. And I was doing a study on that, and I was like, that's a lot of years of ridicule to put up with and not leave, like we were talking about earlier, not leaving the mission that God gave you. So there's something to be said about that.
And you also mentioned about really stepping into what God has for you, or he's given you a dream, he's given you a vision in music to reflect him.
Okay.
And it just kind of reminds me, I had a conversation recently with an much older band. These guys are mid 70, and the two guys I spoke to about 75, and the other guy's 80, and they're still out there performing.
Yeah.
And I think the question came up: are you planning to retire anytime soon? And both of these guys said, "Retire to what?
Exactly.
This is what God has for us to do.
Yeah.
He's given us the desires of our heart to play music. They're still very talented. They haven't faded away in any way. Even the guy's voice is still crystal clear as it was in his 30s.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting older, but they're not stepping away. They're keeping at it.
Yeah. It's wisdom, right? It's wisdom, and it's a blessing because God allows. Again, as we age, we learn things. You have things like my brain injury that happened that really shakes you up and makes you think differently about what's going on. It's a blessing to be a miracle, an example of a living miracle to people. It's just is. And how do you pay him back for that? So for us, the gift of music is his gift to us. What we do with that gift is simply our gift back to him.
Well, pretty much words of wisdom there. So let's go off of this. Let's look at this EP, and the one single off of this record is called "The One."
Yeah.
Now talk to me, and if it's okay with you, I'd kind of like to go just briefly track by track and talk about each song. But let's start with "The One." Tell us about this song.
The one, I pray over all of our projects. God, when he was talking to me about this, there's many songs out there that are based off of the parable about the shepherd who'll leave the 99 sheep to find the lost one, right? There's songs out there about it. God said, nobody's really talking about being the one that I came for. So I want you to write a song from that perspective. And I was like, thank you for that not heavy lift, Lord. That's going to be awesome. I'm praying he's got a sense of humor. That's how I talk to him. It was just, I worked it up. I worked it up. I'm struggling whether I should share this with you, but I think I will because he's telling me to. Maybe one of your viewers need to hear this or see it. So we're doing The One. And the second half of the chorus, the out part of the chorus says, when I searched for you, you came and found me. I was the one, you saw my face. That's the sing out to the chorus, right? So it's almost midnight. We're stacking vocals. And Mikey, I don't want to call him a slave driver, but he's like, let's do another one. So I know God's got something in there. I'm like, all right, we can do another one. So I'm in the vocal booth. It's completely black. All the soundproofing is black. The only light in there is a little LED strip so I can see lyrics. And I'm singing the song. And when I got to that part, Tony, when I searched for you, you came and found me part, no lie, the entire sound booth goes and just blows up into the brightest white I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Fades and subsides. I have clouds to the left of me. I have clouds on the right. There is the most gorgeous, huge mountain in front of me. Haze on the bottom, a green prairie that goes as far as you can see, the greenest green I've ever seen. And I'm singing, when I searched for you, you came and found me, right? And when I'm saying this, here comes Jesus. And I mean, he is rolling towards me. And he's in a robe, not like in the paintings you see in church. He's just in a robe. Hair's flying, robe's flying. He's moving with purpose. His eyes were like, not going to do this justice. His eyes were like clear topaz with the brightest white light from behind you ever wanted to see. I mean, they were just on fire, right? Smile from here to here, nodding his head, yes, up and down. And he's coming at me like this with his arms extended, coming in for a hug. And so, man, I fell apart like cards in a windstorm and just the vocals trickled off and I was toast. And I mean, I'm not only am I to my knees, I'm on my forearms, my forehead's pressed on the floor, and I hear Mikey in the headphones, and he's like, hey, and I've got nothing. I'm toast, right? And so I heard him tell the guys, hey, you need to get in there. And I remember a buddy of mine coming in, and I felt his hands on my back. He's praying over me. And so it was a 20-minute stoppage in the entire recording of that song. And when I got done, he's like, do you need a break? Do you need to step out and take it? I'm like, are you kidding me? I just had a visit, man. Let's roll. And the entire record in the entire studio was everybody said the same thing. There was like an electrical buzz in everybody from that point on. Some people may sit there and hear the story, right, and go, you've got to be kidding. Like, for real. Like, you had that. And I understand that not everybody gets that, and it's a gift. But for your listeners or your viewers, if they've ever felt this compelling, bigger than them thing that they need to do, that's the Lord talking to you, because we're just not that intelligent. And he's giving you something, right? So that also is a blessing. So for me, it's a stage, it's the band, it's lights, it's all that kind of stuff. For somebody else, it's a doctor's office or a roof, if you're a roofer, or it doesn't matter what you do. Everybody has a platform. Just what are you doing with it? And when the Lord speaks to you and you absolutely know it, you're moving differently, and it's a mission different. So that song is just reaching and touching people like crazy right now. So that's what happened with that one.
Well, that's a pretty amazing story. I remember something similar to that. I was speaking with Gordon Kennedy, and he had an album with Ricky Skaggs. It's called the Mosaic album. Mm-hmm. And he said that I'm trying to remember this correctly, but one of the songs that Ricky was trying to sing in the recording studio, he lost it, and he was on the ground. Yeah, he was singing about his relationship with Christ. I forget which song, but it was like an emotional God moment, like you just described with Ricky Skaggs, and trying to get through this song from the Mosaic album. And so I can certainly see that. It's got to be a special moment for you as well.
I told my wife, I've had a couple of things through all the records so far, but I told my wife, and I was like, I've not felt that since I got saved, since the day I got saved in 1995. So I'm like, but bigger, right? Because I'm rooted now. And so I know where it's coming from. I'm not blindsided by it. It's very humbling. And, and I walk around, even after their album was finished, and I was talking with Mike, and he's like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, I feel so unworthy. I just feel unworthy that he would use this guy to do that for him to reach other people. But you have to understand that if he chooses you, he chooses you. So there's that.
Well, Benny, that kind of segues to another song that you just mentioned, 1995.
Yeah.
What the heck is that all about?
Yeah, that's my testimony put to music about when I got saved, which was in 1995. And I was a manager for a car dealership back in the day. This lady came in and bought a car. Then her husband came in and bought a truck. Then her daughter came in and bought a car. And so I was like the family rep, apparently. And we had many discussions. And I had a secular rock band for years when I had hair. And so, saw stuff I never wanted my kids to see when we did that touring thing. That was crazy. She says, hey, didn't you have a rock band before? And I said, I did. Miss Linda. I love you, Miss Linda. Everybody should thank their Miss Linda in their life. And she says, you would love our church, man, because we have a great praise and worship team, and the message is solid. And I was like, well, what are you? Like, what denomination are you? I grew up Lutheran. So I'm like, so I want to know what denomination. And she's like, we're straight from the Bible, babe. That was her answer. Straight from the Bible, babe. And I was like, oh, heard about you people. And it was like that, right? And so, I'm confessing on your show, I lied to Miss Linda for about 4 or 5 weeks because I never showed up for church, and I kept telling her I was going to. And she would call me during the week and say, I didn't see you. And I was like, I was busy, really, really busy. So after the 5th week, I went to a business function and learned something. And these businessmen, and I'm talking multi-millionaire guys, and every single one of them rooted in Christ. Every single one of them. And truly, truly, the way they ran their business, the way they ran their family, there were principles being taught to me that my entire 35 years of life at that time, I had never heard, and I was in church every single Sunday. And if I'd have died on Monday, Tony, I was going to hell because I had heard about Jesus. I didn't know who he was. I didn't have a relationship with him. And these guys are going, hey, You're not going to get any type of success until you're successful in that relationship first. So I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And I called her and told her I'd be there on Sunday. And she says, you've been lying to me. And I said, yes, ma'am. I apologize. I've been lying to you. I just wasn't sure what to expect, but I heard some things and I'm compelled to learn more. And she says, we'll be there at 9:30. And I said, okay. And she says, just meet me at the front door. I said, okay. So I'm driving down Highland Road, which is this historic road in Baton Rouge. And I hear a voice, Tony, in my head. And it's saying, what are you doing? And where do you think you're going? This isn't you, man. This isn't you. They're going to be doing that blah, 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 stuff. And you don't know what's going on here. Man. This is not you. And can I tell you, on this day that we're talking today, that's the very first time I knew what Satan sounded like, right? Because he knew. He's like, man, I'm about to lose another one. And I got fired up and I'm screaming and I'm repeating things I learned in this business meeting a week before, right? And I'm demanding 7 times back everything they never stole from me. And I had been through a bad divorce and all that. I mean, I'm crying. I'm doing 80 in a 35 and I'm like, I'm going to kill myself or somebody. And just, I could not wait to pull into this parking lot at church. Worship was fantastic. Sermon was fantastic. I go down for the altar call. I think there was 8 of us because my church at that point was smaller. Pastor Dino, and he's laying hands on everybody and he's preaching. He's praying over people and he's in tongues, right? And I had never heard that. And I had made fun of it. Like, I'm not going there. But it was the most gorgeous sound I ever heard in my life. And my grandparents on my father's side both came from Sicily. So I knew some Italian stuff. Right in the middle of his prayer, he puts his hand on my head and he's praying and he starts ripping off Amore tutu and stuff like I love you for, I forget what it is now. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking in my mind's mind, right? I'm like, there's no way he knows that and to say that to me because of something my grandparents would say. And I lost it then too, right? I mean, on the floor, I had 5 grown men who I had never met until that day in tears surrounded me, holding me up and praying for me. Everybody gets, do you know what day and exact time it was and everything? I'm like, no, guess when it was? It was in 1995. That's what I know. And guess what? That's all I need to know. Because when I get to heaven, God's not going to have a checklist and go, well, Benny, on October 30th, you showed up at 9:30. He's not, that's it. He doesn't care about that, right? He just cares that I said yes to him. And all he was doing was waiting for me to get rid of my free will and my pride and saying, you know what? I need you more than I need myself. And so hopefully all the lyrics and everything in that song, people feel that because they need to.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
There you go.
Yeah.
So as we progress to the next track, I believe it's called Go Forth. Give us a breakdown of this song.
So back to Sermon on the Mount, right? And at the end, Jesus is basically saying, go forth into the world. Before he ascended to heaven, he tells the disciples, go forth into the world and make all these nations know me and know like God was the living word in flesh, in human flesh. He's like, go tell people. John 14. Everybody's like John 3:16. Everybody knows it. It's in end zones at football games. Tim Tebow made it fantastically famous because that was his eye black. And for me, it's John 14:6, right? I am the truth in the life, in the way. No one enters into my Father's kingdom but through me. And I'm like, if you're watching Willy Wonka, that's the golden ticket. It's Jesus. And the fact that he could have stepped off of that cross and called legions of angels to save him. And he did not do it. And he wept in the garden saying, Father, please let this cup pass from me, but your will be done. And I think, we would do well to learn that prayer, right? Your will be done. And so all those things. And so I was talking with the guys. I'm like, man, we need to give people some marching orders. So basically go forth is marching orders. Like go forth, tell them what you heard, go forth, share his holy word. Go forth, say Jesus is his name, so your life will never be the same. That's the chorus. And I'm like, it's right there. So that's a blast to do.
Absolutely. And so the next track
Yeah.
is People of God.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I originally had 4 songs for this record, and I got a phone call from Mikey, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Check your email." So I checked the email, and it was him, and he says, "I had a great thought for Salt for this record." And he says, "I want to let's co-write and do something with this." And so the title's People of God, and it's incredible. And it's simply, if I can be real with you, I think in the world today, in the modern church today, and I'm not saying any particular church, I'm saying the church, everything's gotten kind of wimpyfied a little bit, right? And kind of, well, it's just grace and forgiveness minus judgment for doing the wrong things and this and the other. God holds us accountable just like we hold our own children accountable, right? And so with that song, it's like, how often as Christians do we actually forget that we are the people of God and that it's time for us to stand up and say so? And if you notice in the secular media world, everybody's starting to come out for Jesus now all of a sudden, it seems like, right? Russell Brand, of all people, I watched some of his stuff from decades ago and I'm like, wow, if God could get him, he can get everybody. But I also said that about myself, right? So we are the people of God, and we're to move forward in that with zero fear, because the devil's a liar. God is not. The devil's problem was that he wanted to be the creator rather than the create. And so he's trying to bring as many people with him as he can. So we're trying to remind everybody we are the people of God, and we have victory in what was done on the cross. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So, yeah. So let's move to I think the last track is Throat Punch the Devil. That's, I like that title. What does that mean?
Yeah, I like that title too. Yeah, look, Tony, this got compared to my very first Christian concert I ever went to. And I was in my BC life. I wasn't even saved. I still have my secular band. And a buddy of mine that I went to high school with, he says, "Man, there's a band at UNO Lakefront Arena, and we need to go. They're doing a big tour. Y'all could open for them." And I'm like, well, let's go check it out. Because I'm a music guy, so we're going to go check it out. So it was Striper, and it was their In God We Trust tour. And they had like 12,000 people in this arena. And I've been to a lot of secular rock shows over the years. I've never witnessed something like this. This is when they were heydaying it. What was that, 89 or 90 or something like that? I mean, they were on fire from the stage, unabashed, don't care what you think about what they're playing, don't care what you think about the lyrics are, because all they were doing was pointing people to Jesus. And I was like, mercy, this is crazy, right? So all of that leading up to today and everything, I went through something demonic leading up to this record within my family. Not evil, demonically evil. And it involved my kids, some of my kids. My guys didn't understand why I handled it the way that I did, because really I wanted to go back to my Sicilian self and off somebody, dad mode. And God told me, you will not do that. Vengeance is mine. I'm going to fix it. However it shakes, I'm going to fix it. So you need to show me. Yeah. And at that point, so I'm fired up, and I am so spitting mad at the devil. I just wanted to throat punch him, right? As a matter of fact, I wanted to throat punch him so hard that I would just rip his spinal column out through the front. And people are like, how can you say that? You're a Christian. That's a little rowdy. That's a little gory. And I'm like, listen, do you think the devil cares when he's coming for you? So as Christians, he's still coming for us. If you're not a Christian, he's coming for you, even though he's already got you. And so and what he's trying to do is inhibit our mission that God's given us, right? And he's trying to sidetrack. And he knew this record was coming up, and he knew what was on this record, and he didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, well, we're going to give you an ode to go. And so Throw Punch the Devil came out, and it's very rowdy. It gets compared to Striper, actually, which I find funny. And if you're a Christian and the devil's in your stuff, go get in his. Because if you've got Jesus who overcame death, which means he overcame hell for you, if you believe, why would you not want to go battle this punk he's not even number 2, right, anymore, since he got cast out of heaven? He's number whatever million, trillion, whatever God has him. He knows the end already, and he knows he's going to spend eternity in hell. And so I'm like, if his sentence is already predetermined, and I'm saved and my sentence is already predetermined, my sentence is greater than his sentence because I'm going to heaven, and I've got Jesus, and I having a David at 16 moment, and I'm coming, and you just throw punch the devil. That's where it came from. I get a little excited about it. On stage, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, it's definitely a hard rocking in your face song, which I think pretty much the entire album is, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that from you.
Yeah, it's a very, very good EP, very good album that you've got out. Now, I wanted to talk about as well. You're partnering with an organization that's called Children's Cup Ministry.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this partnership. Tell us about this ministry.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for asking for that, by the way. A lot of times bands, they'll partner up with like Compassion International, all these kind of things. And so when the band was first founded, Brother Dave Olerking was a member of our church, and he and his wife started Children's Cup in Zimbabwe and Mozambique, AIDS-ridden. No young parents existed anymore because they all died from AIDS. So the grandparents were left raising these children. So they established care points in Africa, and they would feed them food, and they would dress them and clothe them, but they would also feed them and dress them and clothe them with the word of God and ministry, and to break the cycle, right? So I went to Brother Dave, and I was like, Brother Dave, can I talk to you, please? Here's my thoughts. And I would love for us to support you guys through the music. Like all the merch that we sell, we tithe off of that to them. And that's part of what we do aside from giving. And I've actually been on a mission trip to Africa with them to do that. Now they're in South America as well. They're all over the place. And he says, that is a noble and blessing thing that you want to do. So yes, that took 10 minutes of our hour discussion. The rest of it was, I remember when you and Donna were dating and y'all would sit in church, and we were like, oh, they're getting married. You can just tell they're getting married, whatever. And then it was like family stuff, right? And to me, it was more important to have that familia connection, that family connection, where it's invested both ways. So he always wanted to pass away in Africa, was his dream, because that's where his heart was with those kids. And one evening, sitting on the porch, passed away in a chair. And his son, Dan, and his wife, Vicky, they are now the executive directors for it. And Dan is who I went later. After Brother David passed, I went with Dan to Africa, and we did that. And so we're talking about trying to team up and go do something else too. So at some point, I mean, how do you give back? And this was a great way. So childrenscup.org is their website. If anybody's interested in what they do, they're doing what most people won't. And that's bringing Jesus to all these kids. Ironically, the kids 10, 12 years ago when I went to Africa are now grown up, and they're becoming pastors in their villages. And I'm like, come on, that's what it's about right there. And you're changing culture with the love of Jesus, and that's what they do.
It sounds like a very noble mission. Again, you can find more information about this ministry at Children's Cup. Now, with this new EP with your band Empowered titled Salt, what you got coming up? What are your future plans?
Yeah, it's fun. So we just finished the CD release show last week. September 13th, we'll be back at Ichthus in Wilmore, Kentucky. So we'll be on the stage then. In October, we have 2 festivals, 2 weekends in a row. One is right outside of Lake Charles, Louisiana. That's extreme southwest Louisiana. And another one is outside of Shreveport, which is extreme northwest Louisiana. So we're doing both those. There's a young man that I met at National Religious Broadcasters Convention, and I believe we're working with him and his people. They're doing a documentary about him. He also had a traumatic brain injury. And so we have that connection. So we're going to do a benefit concert for them so they can finish the documentary and people can learn more about what God's doing there too, because he saved his life as well. So he and I will have discussions over the phone. And I told him, and I'm like, you do realize God saved us because he knew we would not be afraid to go talk about it. So the reason we're alive is because we have a mission. That's also part of our mission. And so it's more than kind of, it's really cool to be able to have that kind of discussion, especially with the young guy. I mean, he's only 28 years old, but he so desperately wants to be 18 again, right? Because his whole young adult life has just been non-existent pretty much. So I think we're going to do that for him. And then for Christmas, I think we have a Christmas show that we're going to try to put together and send everybody into the new year with that. So that's short term. Long term, it's whatever God's got. He opens doors. We're just going to go through them. That's our mantra.
It's a pretty good mantra right there.
Yeah, right.
Benny, again, you can find out more about Benny and his band Empowered, and especially about the new EP. I encourage you to go ahead and purchase that EP and listen to it. You can go to the number 4 Jesus, rockin4jesus.com, and find more information about Benny, his story. He's got a tremendous story about how God has transformed his life, learn about his band, and all of those good things. But Benny, I can't thank you enough, man, for coming on and just talking to us about your new EP.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again. Sorry about the run-ons, and then God gets a hold of me, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Great conversation. And again, Benny, hang on 30 seconds post-interview. But
sure.
Thank you so much, and until next time.